Welcome to the Emergency Management Do One Thing personal video training series. My name is Quentin Graham. As an emergency manager, it is our goal to provide continuous training towards making a disaster resilient installation. What this means is that as an installation team, we respond together to quickly save lives, mitigate the hazard, and return to normal operations. Because we, the installations, are the backbone for the warfighter. This series focuses on completing one thing each month to become more prepared. We use the Do One Thing program. Now, for the next essential topic, your instructor.
Well, hello everyone, this is Quentin Graham, your favorite emergency manager, and we're back with Do One Thing with our first step, which is risk assessments. And that's taking small steps to prepare your organization or business for emergencies. So you'll notice that we'll through a 12-step process that starts with the Do One Thing. And goal for that one step is understand how an emergency or disaster can affect your business and identify those potential risks. But why do a risk assessment? For businesses, a disaster is any event that endangers its ability to continue operating and follow its business plan. Statistics show that 1 in 4 businesses won't reopen after a disaster. New research shows that many more businesses will reopen, only to fail within a few years of a disaster, often after the business owner has exhausted their life savings trying to stay afloat. Understanding your risk is the first step to making your business disaster resilient. Now, how does this relate to the military? Well, if we look at this same aspect of doing our risk assessment, we also look at this, for example, the hurricanes that have hit Tyndall Air Force Base several years ago, and Tyndall Air Force Base is still not up and completely operational. We don't want that to happen to any of our military bases. So that's why we do this Do One Thing in our step process of identify those particular risks and mitigate against those. So no business or organization or community will ever be disaster proof. Disaster resilience is the ability of a business to withstand the impact of disaster and continue as strong, healthy organization, even if it isn't exactly the same organization that it was before the disaster. We also call this disaster resiliency. So let's choose one thing to do this month within your organization to help do one thing. Identify general hazards that can occur in your community and specific hazards from which your business organization may be at risk. Understand major variables that can affect your ability to reopen after a disaster. What are some of those things that would actually stop your organization from being able to do its mission? Take steps to protect your assets from those hazards. What can we do? So, I'm not going to read all of these risks here, but identify general hazards that occur in your community and specific hazards for which your business or organization may be at risk. So if we look at some things, a structural fire, wildfire, that seems to be a big thing here in California. Severe winds, we do have some severe winds here. And what can that do? Some of the other things is earthquake. So a lot of the buildings are old. So what would an earthquake do to that? And kind of be able to look at that in a different perspective. Hazardous materials release or some sort of transportation type accident. Might be a few things just to consider off of this list and see what things that might affect your organization. Other things that can be is power outages or anything along the utility lines might be part of that. So, task 1. Identify general hazards that can occur in your community and specific hazards from which your business organization may be at risk. Determine which of these impacts could affect your business from the hazards that we discussed previously. Not every hazard has the same impacts. Localized hazards like floods, structure fires are likely to disrupt the supply chain or overwhelm healthcare systems, but they can have a devastating impact if your business is directly affected. Other hazards like earthquakes and civil disturbances may have a severe impact even if your business isn't directly impacted. For example, currently in the state of California, PG&E is shutting off power to specific things. Would that impact your business? Would that impact your organization? Those are some of the things, current trends that you may want to consider. So put together a team of staff members from each area of your business organization to talk through how hazards might impact your business. It doesn't have to be much. It just has to be a few-minute conversation and kind of consider some things here. So task 1, identify general hazards that can occur in your community and specific hazards from which your business organization may be at risk. Short-term impacts, property damage, injuries, disruption, public services, public safety resources, sanitation, healthcare systems, supply chain disruption. If you can't get what you need to put stuff together, can you be able to do your job? Or if you can't get your stuff out that you've got put together, would that do something? Loss of communications, the internet, phone, those type of things. Employees unable or unwilling to come to work because of specific events. 395 is closed, or the freeway system, or the bridges are out, or what else can be out there that would stop them from coming to work. Loss of business income, customer disruptions. Long-term type of impacts is change in the community demographics, where we can't get employees. Change in demand for products or services, where, I don't know, you kind of play with that one a little bit. Changes in business economic base due to changes in the community. So, task number 2. Understand major variables that can affect your ability to reopen after disaster. There are 5 major variables that can affect your business or organization. Chances kind of affect your chances of resuming that operations after a disaster. So, first thing is effects on customers. We don't have the customer base. Available substitutes so they can find what they need somewhere else. Industry innovation. Loss of vital resources that allow us to do our mission. Owner response, or our response to a new environment, so our failure to adapt. Disaster changes things. Community and businesses are never exactly the same after a major disaster. Recovery may not mean a return to business as usual or an organization as usual. The goal is to have an organization that is financially viable in a post-disaster environment. And I know we don't really worry about too much of the financial piece, but we need to have that into consideration because we're a working capital fund base. So some things to consider is our very closeness to businesses with our organization, because it is applicable. So task 2, understand major variables that can affect your ability to reopen after disaster. The effect on customers. Businesses whose customers are severely impacted by disaster are less likely to survive. This is particularly true when the product or service the business provides is not a necessity or can be postponed. So if they can just store the stuff for a long period of time and not need to pull it from us, then we might affect some of our contracts and stuff. Customers who are displaced by the disaster may not move back to the same location. Having multiple locations or a geographically diverse customer base increases your business organization chance of survival. Available substitutes. If substitutes for your product or services are readily available, you may have trouble winning customers back when your business reopens, or when we reopen because of a disaster that's currently going. The longer you're closed, the harder it will be. Specialized products or services increase your business's chances of survival. So I think we're pretty good on the substitute thing because we're one of only very few bases that do what we do. So we're good in that way. So industry innovation, a business that was competitive before the disaster has a better chance of recovering afterward. Finding ways to be competitive now increases your business chances of survival after the disaster. So, what are some ways that we can be competitive? Because if we're closed for an extended period of time, some of those work things that would have came to our base, it might have went to one of the other bases within TACOM for them to accomplish that particular mission. So, loss of vital resources. We store a lot of stuff here, so this would make sense. Specialized machinery or equipment that may be hard to replace if damaged in a disaster. So is there anything that's really specialized in your area that we only have a few of these and that kind of give us an edge in this market? Suppliers and transportation companies may also be affected. So price of gas, the ability of truckers to come here and pick up stuff and deliver stuff. The more you rely on a single supplier, or a single shipper, or a single anything, so there's a single point of failure, the harder it will be for your business to recover. Employees may be impacted by the disaster, so big wildfire or whatever else that, kind of like that went through into Reading and stuff like that, and kind of decimated a few other cities. What would happen if Reno or Susanville or Hurlong or anything of that got kind of affected that? They may be reluctant or unable to return to work if their homes are damaged or their families are affected. Employees displaced by the disaster may not move back. They may accept another federal job or whatever that's near there, or they may accept civilian type employment. Other vital resources include inventory. We have a lot of inventory. Production time, we're taking too long to get stuff out. And our facilities, we lose facilities. So some things can all go into there as vital resources that we have that provide for our mission base. Identifying the alternatives to these two key resources ahead of time increases your business or organization's chance of survival. So, owner response to a new environment. So, the response to our changing dynamics of what's going on with us. This is the most important factor in whether or not a business or organization will recover after a disaster. Business owner who recognizes the changes in the post-disaster market can adjust to them is more likely to survive the disaster. Creating contingency plan increases your business's chance of survival. And I don't mean just, we're just going to do this. I mean more along the lines of that, things that help us to keep things going, to be able to quickly recover, to be able to mitigate these type of incidents. So, task 3, take steps to protect your assets from those hazards. So we've already identified some, we've already figured it out. So here's another task that you could probably do, is steps you take to protect your business or organization before the disaster are called mitigation. So mitigation can be structural, it could be changes to a building. Non-structural could be the way that we just do business, so a process improvement project or anything along those lines. Studies show that for every dollar spent on mitigation, an average of $4 is saved in a disaster through damage that is prevented. So if we can shore up the walls and everything like we've been doing to a lot of stuff for that wind type damage, then we're saving $4 for every dollar that we spent. So that's excellent type of an investment. Here are a few things that you can do to lessen the impact of disaster on your business or organization. Is facility protection, redundant type systems, so that way we're not relying on just one particular thing. Shelter areas, and have appropriate insurance or appropriate operational funds that are in the background that we can utilize. So, facility protection. If your business is in a floodplain, we're not too much of an area, or in an area prone to earthquakes, okay, so we're in California. Hurricanes, maybe not, but we do have high winds. Retrofit your facility to withstand those hazards as much as possible. So another thing is redundant systems. Evaluate how your records are stored, particularly if you're in a hazard-prone area. Store copies of important records off-site, or add extra protection to your current storage systems. Also consider backup generator for important systems and processes in case of a long-term power outage. How do we get that type of stuff? How do we get the customer stuff out? Shelter areas. So designate shelter areas for tornadoes, high winds, hazard materials release. So we have those that are listed as our business, our building, emergency management plans. So if you're in a tornado or high wind prone area, consider adding a safe room for employees. We have those inside of our buildings, so we're doing pretty good there. Consider accessibility for customers or employees with disabilities. Consider areas of refuge in a structure fire, such as stairwells with fireproof doors, where people who are unable to evacuate can wait to be rescued. So some other type of considerations. Have appropriate insurance, enough kind of operational funds set aside. Make sure that your insurance or those operational funds covers hazards that you've identified, because we may not actually get reimbursement very quickly. Kind of the issue is that government's a little bit different, is that we use the operational funds and then we get a reimbursement, and that reimbursement may or may not actually come, and it may come from other organizations, come to us, or it may be a special congressional type funding to actually have that accomplished. So here's our next step. Is number 2 is essential business functions. So something to get you to think about for next month. A lot happens in your business every day. Some activities can be suspended, some can't. So we're going to look at those, prioritize which business functions are critical to continued operations of your business in a disaster, or your organization. Identify what functions can be delayed and kind of for how long. And then what can be deferred in the event of a potential disaster. This is the foundation of your continuity plan. So remember, this is your favorite emergency manager here, trying to talk to you about do one thing. And do one thing for this month is kind of assessing those risks. So remember, www.doonething.com or www.readyarmy.mil. Thank you, and see you next month.